That's correct.
Okay, let's move on. The next match we have is an absolute legend coming to the ring. Andre the Giant is going to take on Big John Studd with his manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Ooh, I haven't seen Bobby the Brain in so long.
Oh, man, I am so excited for this match. Loved Andre the Giant. He was an absolute monster. Absolutely loved watching him in the ring.
All right, let's get to it.
Okay, so our next match has a stipulation in it. It's a career versus $15,000 body slam challenge. So the winner of this match is the first wrestler that can body slam their opponent. And it is between Andre the Giant and Big John Studd with Bobby the Brain Heenan as his manager. Now, this match was a typical big man versus big man match. A lot of chops, chokes, bear hugs. Not a lot of guys leaving their feet.
Barely aggressive kicks to the shin.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't know if I recall ever seeing Andre the Giant throw kicks, but it was very low, very awkward.
And really not a lot of force to it.
No, but I'm guessing he don't have to do much effort to hurt somebody, though. So
true. It kind of reminded me of the Orange Cassidy kicks, if you watch any of that. If you know who Orange Cassidy is. Oh, well, he's on AEW now, so.
Okay. So, Andre the Giant, I'm sure you all know if you're listening to a wrestling podcast, but the man is massive. 7'4", 520 pounds, according to his Wikipedia page. The man was a monster of a man, and they even tell you during the match that he wears a size 23, and then they said a 24 boot. So I guess, not sure what the real one is. They mentioned both sizes. They also mentioned that the biggest shoe in the NBA at the time of 1985 was a size 19. So
he was a big boy.
That just shows you how big of a boy Andre the Giant is.
That's why he's called the eighth wonder of the world.
Obviously. The man was massive. So, like I said, this match didn't really have a whole lot of exciting stuff. It was just big man trading blows with big man. And the match ends with Andre the Giant finally body slamming Big John Studd to win the match.
Pretty slow match.
No pins, so these big guys didn't even have to get down on the mat and pin anybody. So
well, it's really far down there, so really far
man.
Down there.
So, and then he won the $15,000, started throwing it out in the crowd. Very big crowd pleaser until Bobby the Brain Heenan kind of ruined the party and stole the money and ran out.
Yep, and then they interview Andre the Giant after the match, and he mumbled something. I couldn't really clarify very well.
He said, I don't care about the money, I'm just glad to body slam Big John Studd.
You were a little too clear with that interpretation.
Yeah, he's got this
I could
French
fully
accent.
Understand you, yeah.
He's got this French accent that kind of hard to emulate, but it sounded a little like that. Alright, so moving on, we're going to go to our next match. It's the first in WrestleMania history women's match. It's going to be Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper in her corner versus Leilani Kai with the fabulous Moolah in her corner. This will be for the World Wrestling Federation Women's Championship.
Now, I didn't realize they even had a women's championship back then.
Yes, they had a women's championship. This was before they were referred to as divas, and now they're not even referred to as divas anymore. So, I mean, this was long, long ago.
Long, long ago.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next match. Okay, so here we have the WWF Women's Championship match.
Ladies Championship.
Well, okay, so you got Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura doing the announcing throughout this whole show, and they keep referring to this as the Ladies Championship. So even though the graphics on the screen that tell you this is the WWF Women's Championship match, but they keep referring to it as the Lady Championship. So does Howard Finkel.
It's a very small championship. Really small.
Yeah, it wasn't very big. Very tiny, like a light blue belt. Mm-hmm. So, anyhow, this match was, it was the first in WrestleMania history to have a celebrity join them, which is a big deal in WrestleMania. There's celebrities almost every year. I can't recall a WrestleMania that didn't have a celebrity.
Yeah, those girls really like to have fun, Rage.
Wah, wah, wah. So anyhow, so Cyndi Lauper is the celebrity guest in this. She brings out Wendy Richter, and she does an interview at the beginning, very Boston accent. But anyhow, I don't know what else to say about this match. It was a lot of hair pulling.
I thought it was kind of cruiserweight like. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's
for
right.
a women's, like an old women's match. I mean, the women's wrestling has gotten so much better these days. But I was pleasantly surprised by this match.
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't horrible, but it still had a lot of the hair pulling that kind of plagued that.
This is 1985 women's wrestling, so
right. So it still had a lot of that stereotypical. This is what we do in women's type of matches.
Oh, wait till we get to the 90s.
And then the ending kind of looked botched.
A little bit. I mean, she didn't really jump very high. But, I mean, she jumped off the top rope. It was an interesting ending.
Yeah, Leilani Kai jumps off the top rope, does a crossbody, but then as she falls to the ground, they kind of flip places, and Wendy Richter gets on top and pins her for the 1-2-3. But it just didn't. It almost didn't.
It didn't flow very well.
It didn't look planned that way. But that's what we got, and it's in the history books.
I'm pretty sure it was planned. It didn't flow very well. They might have screwed it up a little bit, but there was no way you had Cyndi Lauper in your corner and not win the WrestleMania match.
Well, obviously, it just the way it ended was just very awkward. Like, you didn't think that was going to be the finish of the match, and there it was.
Yeah. I give you that, but I'm pretty sure that was who was intended to win. We're not talking about a Montreal screw job or anything.
No. We're not talking that it didn't end the way they wanted it to end. I'm just saying the execution.
Oh no, the execution
just
was botched.
did not look clean.
Yeah, it should have been a little bit more flowy. Like, she should have turned it right away.
Right.
With the reversal, but
we got what we got, and it's in the history book, so here it is. So now we're going to move on to the main event with Hulk Hogan.
Oh, brother.
With Mr. T.
I pity the fool.
And they're going to be taking on Paul Orndorff and Rowdy Piper.
Oh, I'm excited about seeing Rowdy Piper.
With Bob Orton in their corner.
No, Bob Orton.
Cowboy Bob Orton.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yes, he is the father of current WWE superstar Randy Orton.
Ah, yes. That's pretty exciting.
So anyhow...
And Rowdy. I love Rowdy Piper.
We kind of have a history with Rowdy Piper. We we had a grandmother. She's passed away now, but she would actually buy us Rowdy Piper action figures. Not because she gave a hoot about wrestling, because her heritage is Scottish, and she absolutely loved that there was a wrestler wearing a kilt.
If only she actually knew how Roddy Piper was.
No, I don't think she ever saw Rowdy Piper in action. It was just the fact that he was Scottish.
Oh, I know. But he was pretty much one of the best heels in the business, and he was a jerk.
Absolutely.
And our grandma would have hated him if she actually got to see him talk.
I'm sure she did, but all she saw was a wrestler with a kilt, and she's like...
Oh, yeah, she liked it.
She's like, oh, I'm going to get the boys this.
That's exactly how our grandmommy sounded.
So anyhow, so here we go. We're going to, as she would say, keep on keeping on with this show, and we're going to move on to the main event.
Brother.
Okay, so the main event of WrestleMania. We've got, it starts off very celebrity-ish.
Oh, yeah.
They started off with first introducing Billy Martin as the guest ring announcer. He is a former Major League Baseball player, played for the New York Yankees, won 5 World Series, I believe 4 as a player, 1 as a manager.
Full disclosure, no idea who that was.
No, I
had no idea.
No, straight full disclosure, I had to look it up.
Fair enough.
Okay, so Billy Martin's announced first, and then we get, for some reason, Liberace.
A little song and dance to be the ring,
he's the
bell
guest,
ringer.
He's the guest timekeeper.
Yes.
And Liberace comes out and does high kicks with the Rockettes.
Yes.
So, on top of that, then we get Muhammad Ali announced as the special guest referee, but he is the outside referee, kind of like an enforcer.
He was literally there because he's Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
And he didn't actually do anything refereeing.
He argued with the other special guest referee, which was Pat Patterson, which people who watched wrestling in the 90s will remember Pat Patterson as kind of Vince McMahon's lackey.
Right.
One of his goons.
Right.
So then we finally get the announcement of, we get the entrance to Rowdy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, accompanied by Cowboy Bob Orton. And we get this, what you would expect from a WrestleMania entrance. You get the bagpipes. A whole group of guys in kilts playing bagpipes, leading these guys out to the ring. And so now we're starting to feel like you can see that this is the future of WrestleMania coming out. And this is what we have known and loved as fans for years, the big extravagant entrances.
It was pretty great.
It was absolutely great. Love the sound of bagpipes. So
I love Rowdy.
Yeah, Rowdy Piper is one of the greatest, and I don't know if you could call him underrated. I don't think he ever won the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWF Championship, which is a shame. I'm saying it here first. That is a damn shame, because he was so great. Wonderful wrestler, great character, just over the top. Absolutely loved Rowdy Piper.
One of the best heels in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So then they come out. Next we get the real American. You hear the music, the iconic Hogan music.
I am a real American.
So you get him, you get Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, who I pity the fool. He comes out with, accompanied by Jimmy the Superfly Snuka. They come out, huge pop. You can tell Hogan is already a huge.
Fans were majorly into this match.
Absolutely huge pop for Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, and Jimmy the Superfly Snuka. So the match starts off basically just taunting in a sense. You get a little bit of back and forth on, oh, well, I want to fight him. I want to fight. So you get tags without anybody doing anything. And so you get the whole pointing at Mr. T. Hogan points at Mr. T. Everybody, do you want to see him come in? So then he tags Mr. T in, and then the match starts with Mr. T and Rowdy Piper. And so the match really had that big old, you could tell there was a big build-up in this match. Because they were really playing to the crowd the first 2-3 minutes into the match. I don't think a wrestling move had been done yet.
Now, after watching this entire WrestleMania, I gained a little bit more respect for Hulk Hogan. I've never been a big Hulk Hogan fan myself. I was always more of a Ultimate Warrior guy when I was younger.
But that's what makes you an idiot. But go on.
Yeah, well, he was more charismatic than just about everyone there.
Absolutely.
Other than Roddy Piper.
Absolutely. Hogan definitely commands the room. He definitely puts on the show. He definitely builds up to the crowd. And then after the match, they interview the three of them. And you could tell him on the mic, he's second to none.
Oh, yeah.
At this time, there's nobody that can touch him on the mic.
He's great on the mic. He's very showman. My biggest issue with Hogan is I'm not a big fan of his wrestling style. His wrestling style is a little boring for me.
Well, he was there in a simpler time.
Fair enough.
You can get away with a clothesline and a leg drop and do a couple poses and move on. You win the match. He definitely cannot live up to some of the future superstars that show up now.
Well,
and even in the 90s.
And that's why I'm saying watching this, watching the entire WrestleMania and seeing everyone else, you see a difference. You see a huge difference between Hogan and almost everyone else there.
Absolutely. Hogan was a massive presence, and from the get-go. I mean, obviously, before WrestleMania was born, he had already had a following. You could tell. I mean, he's already got his theme music, where 80% of the guys didn't get no theme music at WrestleMania. They were already in the ring.
It was like a house show.
It was it was very different. Not everybody got theme music. Not everybody even got entrances. They came in during the pre-recorded Mean Gene Okerlund interviews, which I'd like to also point out this was the only match in the first WrestleMania that you did not get a Mean Gene Okerlund interview at the beginning of the match.
No, and I was kind of sad about that.
Well, yeah, I was too. Luckily, they did interview Hogan,
but
Mr. T, and Snuka at the end of the match. So
not Roddy Piper.
No,
who I really wanted to
right.
hear.
You didn't get to hear Piper talk. You did get to hear Hogan talk at the end, but you didn't get to hear Piper talk. But obviously, fans of wrestling know he had plenty of time to talk after this event.
Right.
And he did it very, very well. But you did get to hear his signature calling each other brother at the end of the show there. But unfortunately, this must have been or he at least didn't say it at WrestleMania. He didn't tell the kids to eat their vitamins and say their prayers.
Yeah.
So you didn't get that. I was a little shocked.
He also
not to
didn't
hear
tell
that.
us that what you gonna do when all the Hulkamaniacs run wild on you.
You're right. We didn't get that. We didn't get the Hulkamania. That stuff must come later. But you still saw that charisma when he got on the mic.
Oh yeah,
calling everybody
and
brother during the interview, and you could see his facial expressions, his pointing, all that going on in the ring, which made him such a big draw.
Yeah, he was a huge presence, very animated.
Very, very animated. So he definitely carried this WrestleMania and gave it some legitimacy, where I'd say the majority of the show was it was okay. It was good for a first show, but you could tell this thing, obviously, as we already know, blossoms into what it is today.
With all the knowledge we have of wrestling, it was kind of a slow, boring show. But, for a first time, obviously the main event was pretty good. Really good.
So we get another sort of controversial ending to this match. It was pretty good, back and forth to the most part. Actually, you know what? I actually think the heels actually did more beat down than the actual baby faces in this match. And a matter of fact, we also got another WrestleMania first that we haven't pointed out yet. We got our very first steel chair shot in this match. Hogan's in the outside of the ring, which I found funny that there was no guardrail. The fans were literally almost up against the ring. I don't know if you noticed it.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, you could see Hogan on the ground, and the fans were literally sitting there right in front of him. No guardrail blocking them from the ring or anything. And the fans were actually pretty crowded up almost to the ring. There wasn't very much space in between. And Roddy Piper grabbed a steel chair from an audience member that, took that person's seat.
Well, that audience member was very nice to help Roddy Piper.
Well, the show was almost over at that point. You might as well be standing during the main event
absolutely.
Anyhow. What are you doing sitting your ass down during the main event?
I'd like to find that fan and thank him.
Absolutely. He is actually the hero of this show due to the fact that he gave us our first steel chair shot in a WrestleMania.
Real man of genius.
So we have a huge thank you to Rowdy Piper and Hogan's back for receiving that chair shot, because that is wrestling history.
He took it like a champ.
Like a champ. So anyhow, that kind of does it for this show. It ends with some weird 80s music and some still shots of the show.
It looked like the end of every 80s sitcom ever.
Right. So if you've ever been and watched a orientation video at work, kind of reminded you of that. You go to work and they show you these safety videos, and the end is kind of cheesy with some still shots of people in the factory. That's kind of what it reminded me of, is very cheesy ending to a show, almost similar to the beginning with the still shots and the 80s music.
Yeah. All it needed was all the wrestlers just jumping in the middle of the ring and then freeze frame.
So, pure excitement, I would say it's hard to argue that the main event was definitely probably the best match of the night. But I'm going to have to argue this, because I still think the best match of the night would have to go to the Junkyard Dog defeating Greg the Hammer Valentine in the Intercontinental Championship match. Unfortunately, it ended in a countout, but I would have to say for this WrestleMania, that would have to be my favorite match of the night. Blaze, what did you think?
Well, I wanted so bad to say Ricky the Dragon Steamboat match was the best match. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy his opponent as much, and I felt like he didn't do as much as I was hoping to see. So I have to give it to the main event. I don't want to pick the main event. I don't want to be that easy and say, well, the main event was the best of the night. But the main event was the best of the night. There's no questioning it. I'm sorry. But the main event was the most entertaining match. The fans were super into it. You had Hulk Hogan. You had Mr. T at his prime after the A-Team, after Rocky 3. You had Mr. T in there. And, of course, the biggest reason the main event's the best is you had Rowdy, Roddy, Piper, and he was fantastic. I mean, he took that atomic drop, and he sells that move so well. That was one thing I noticed about Rowdy, is he sells the moves he gets so well.
And it's hard to argue that. Like I said, I almost went with the main event, but I don't know, something about the Junkyard Dog match.
Fun match.
I think he brought an excitement to it, barking, during the whole match, doing the headbutts on his his all fours. I don't know. The main event was all right. I felt there, to counter your argument on why you like that match better, is I thought it was a lot of, hey, referee, look over here while these two beat up on one guy. And that happened way too often in that main event match.
That made it more fun for me.
Yeah, well, to me, it wasn't as much of a match as a, hey, look over here while we punch and kick this guy. And to me, the Junkyard Dog match was more of a good match. So that's just my argument, but it's hard to argue that the fans obviously went home feeling that the Hogan-Piper match would have been the best they saw, because it definitely got the biggest pop of the night.
It was just most enjoyable, and it told the most interesting story in my book. I'm hoping that every pay-per-view we watch, the main event isn't the best one. And I've watched enough wrestling to know that is not going to be the case.
Oh, no. When we start getting into the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, the TLC matches that they start.
Oh, yeah.
The Money in the Bank matches.
Oh, that one steals the show almost every time.
Early on Money in the Bank matches, when they first started that up, I can definitely tell you the main event's going to get overshadowed more often than not. In this one, we're on a little bit of a debate here, but you know what? Sometimes you can be wrong like Blaze, or you can be right like me. I feel I'm a pioneer in the way of saying that the Junkyard Dog and the non-main event is the best match, so I'm going to go with that match, and Steven's going to go, or Blaze, I'm sorry, is going to go with the wrong match. It is what it is. But I think we're going to close this out.
Well, more importantly, what was your least favorite match of the night?
Least favorite match of the night? I would definitely have to say probably King Kong Bundy and Special Delivery Jones. It lasted all but a second, and it was a squash match, and I don't know if you can call it a match.
It's a good choice. It was pretty terrible. However, I think the first match of the night kind of was worse. At least King Kong Bundy, you knew what it was. It is exactly what it was. A squash match. But the Executioner was just so terrible that I'm going to give it to the first match, Tito Santana versus the Executioner.
Fair enough. Wrong again, but that's okay. It's going to happen once or twice in your life. Maybe a few more for you. So, I think we're going to wrap this show up. Join us next time as we move on to WrestleMania 2, and that should be fun, where we have WrestleMania 2 and 3 before we start moving on to other pay-per-views like Survivor Series.
I believe we get to the third WrestleMania, and then after that it's Survivor Series.
Right. So I think we're going to get a bigger and better WrestleMania in WrestleMania 2, and should be fun. Join us for that, and have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.